Hey, fellow golfers, this is Robbie from Best Ball. One of the most popular names in the golf accessory market today is Western Birch. Stop reaching in your pocket for boring plastic or plain white golf tees and elevate your game with premium wooden golf tees from Western Birch. You can customize both the hardwood and bamboo tees with one of their signature stripe patterns in a wide variety of colors. These tees are stylish enough to stand apart from the crowd, traditional enough to align with golf's heritage, and durable enough to make you forget about using anything else. Enter the code BESTBALL in the promo field in your shipping cart to add a free gift to your order. So visit westernbirch.com and get your own premium wood golf tees in the style that suits your game.
What a cool thing, though, that we get to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You know, like that guy yesterday who got the hole-in-one. That's something he will never, ever forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, never.
And you get to be inserted in that story. And so when he looks at the picture from afterwards, and he shows that picture to people, we are, just kind of etched into that memory. And it's fun. It's an honor, One thing about that guy, by the way, though, he was so down to earth and humble. He went to go get up on the 13th tee box after he had the hole-in-one, and he was going to use the ball that went in for the hole-in-one.
Oh.
And we're like, no, wait, hole. Man, this is golf. Your next drive is going into the lake. Tales Podcast. I'm Mark the Caddy, joined by my friend, sidekick, colleague, Nick. And we are so happy to once again be able to talk to you about how this game of golf intersects with the beautiful game of life. And we can take lessons learned in both places and apply them and grow as people and as golfers even. So on this beautiful day, how you feeling, Nick?
Feeling good, man. I think I might actually be able to play some golf today, so I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, with no help from yourself, but...
Yeah, I was planning on playing with you, and then I got the dreaded text from my wife that it's my son's first baseball game today, and since I'm missing some of his soccer games to be out on the course, I best not miss baseball today since we have the day off. But this is the first time we have talked since the big Scotty Scheffler incident, so we now live in a different world, a world in which Scotty Scheffler has been in a holding cell.
That scoundrel.
Yeah. I still can't believe it. I really... And I think the fun thing on Friday was it reminded you why a social media app like Twitter is gold, because there hasn't been a day of memes or content that has come out that has been that good in as long as I can remember. So Scotty may not have enjoyed the day, but he did contribute to the laughter and uniting of America. He brought us together. So thank you, Scotty. Yeah. But hey, a lot has happened in the last week out on the golf course, and I want to talk about that today, give a little bit of a recap. Start with you, Nick. What was your favorite moment of the week?
Probably yesterday I had a guy who was let's call him a non-golfer. He came up to me at the bag drop, and he's like, "Hey, Nick, I've got a problem." I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I don't play golf ever." I'm like, "All right. I mean, I've been through this song and dance before. No big deal. We'll take care of you." And then he was great. He fully trusted me. I just hand him a club and tell him where to aim, and it was the easiest thing, which is incredibly nice. It was like playing a video game out there. So he played well. I think he broke 50 on the front, and I think he had 3 or 4 pars. Fell apart a little bit on the back, but.
That's pretty darn good for someone who says they never play golf.
Yeah, he had some pretty he was like a natural athlete, so that helped a lot.
Wow. Yeah, for those people out there, you wonder, how can that happen? How does a guy end up, at a top 100 world-class golf course without being a golfer? We host a fair number of corporate events.
Yep.
Where either they're hosting clients or they're rewarding their employees. So I don't know, maybe 15-20% of the loops throughout the year are for that kind of event. And yesterday there was a rather large one that was on the course.
You were
on
that as well, right?
What's that?
Were you on that as well?
Yeah, I was, and
Okay.
I'll be talking about it because I had a great loop. You know, they're hit or miss. You know, when you have these corporate events, because not only does the golf vary greatly, but the people, you know, there's just a wide range of how much they want to be there or how much they care about having a caddy or whatever. And then financially, they're just a little bit of a different animal. And so yesterday turned out to be great. As a matter of fact, the whole last week since we've talked has been pretty darn good. And most times here on the Caddie Tales podcast, we'll, you know, pick a topic or a theme and dig into it a little bit. Last week we talked about the PGA tournament, for instance. But this week I just want to give listeners a little bit of an insight into what most of my loops looked like this week. And Nick, please feel free to interject and share a little bit about yours. Just want people to know how grateful we are and what a great job we have on most days. The people we get to interact with, the experiences that we get to have. People wonder, you know, like, why do you do it? Or why don't you get a real job, as some people would say? And you know, we're pretty blessed. We're fortunate to be able to get to do what we get to do. And I'm really thankful for it. One of the things that I got to do this week, and this is something that everybody asks, is, you know, you ever caddy for any famous people or any athletes? And now these guys weren't household names. They weren't famous. But got to caddy along with you for some Canadian professional hockey players. How'd you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, just great guys. I remember we were telling them stories like horror stories about us caddying. And I think one of the guys was like, if you're mean to a caddy, you should probably be shot. And I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah. So the liaison of their group gave me permission to use his name. And so if those of you didn't see me post about it on X, we got to caddy for Angus Crookshank and a couple of his buddies. They're in the Ottawa Senators system. Angus got pulled up for a number of games with the big club last year, so that was fun to talk about. But I mean, come on. You're going to caddy for a guy whose name is Angus Crookshank. There's absolutely zero chance that could be anything but a good day. So I loved it. And they were, you know, what I call Canadian nice.
Absolutely,
they're just nice people with a great accent. We could do a whole show, by the way, about how people, generally speaking, are different based on what part of the country or the world they come from.
Yeah.
And that certainly bore itself to be true. Also, one thing that kind of bore itself to be true was that these guys, they weren't the best golfers we've ever been with, but one of them in particular, he could bomb the ball pretty far, and that's a pretty universally NHL hockey player thing to do, is that they can crush the ball.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely weren't bad players. I've caddied for much worse in the past week, but yeah. They were. I liked caddying for them. They were good.
It was actually super fun. They were having a good time. They're pro athletes. They've obviously done cool things, and yet they were like children on the course. They were just giddy kids, and they also said, one of them, that it was like a top 5 day of his life. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's just amazing to be able to do. And also, you touched on it, Nick. They just showed us a great level of respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, complete respect. Like, thankful for everything we could do for them, and yeah, it was a magical day.
Yeah, and it. You know, they tipped very nicely, but it's not even just about that. You know, I'm being sincere when I say, of course, we want to make money. Who doesn't go to work and want to make money? Okay, but you know, an extra 20 or 40 or 50 in the scheme of things, you want people to appreciate you and to be thankful for what you've done. And then you recognize different people have different means. And so not everything's going to just be this, you know, boatload of money, but, did they respect you? Were they kind? Were they willing to converse? Those types of things go a long way. And these guys are almost bending over backwards to make sure that they were like that, And then we would tell them some stories, and they're like, "What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
people would say that."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that
was kind of fun. So, hey, any of you Canadian hockey players, hey, if you're an American hockey player, come on out. We love you. You guys have, in my opinion, of the athletes, the best reputation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, just super kind guys, and they're like guys. So
Yeah. I don't know what it is about hockey players that makes them so down to earth, but they just really are very, very humble people. They're just more down to earth. You don't feel like you're with a rich celebrity when you're with them, like you can maybe feel with some other people. Mm-hmm. And even people who aren't celebrities, if they're like just a kind of a finance guy or whatever, sometimes they'll big time you a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, we also talked about how we weren't on the same loop yesterday, but had a corporate loop. A large company was hosting, I think, distributors, people they do business with. Mm-hmm. And I ended up with just some awesome dudes, a father and son from Texas. And then also there was another guy who I think was from their same club in Texas, must work with them. And then the host, who was part of the bigger company, and we just could not have had a more enjoyable day. I will say the bags were tanks. And actually there was a funny moment. I was walking to we finished the 9th hole, walking to the turn window, and there happens to be 2 guys walking toward me. And, I had either golfed earlier or we're going to golf later. And they're like, "Hey, are you Mark?" And I'm like, "Yeah," sheepishly. And they're like, "Dude, we got your book and we follow you on Twitter. Oh man, it's so good to meet you," and whatever. And they're like, I'm like, "Oh, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for saying hello." And they're like, How's it going? I said, "Oh, this is a good loop." I said, "The bags are pretty heavy because they must not follow me on Twitter." And they hadn't yet. And they weren't trying to be, they were just big heavy bags, whatever. I'll get over it. I'll stop whining at some point about it. But
maybe
the wind was blowing.
Oh yeah, it was bad yesterday.
Oh my gosh. What do you think it was yesterday?
I think it was like 40 at times.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah, I remember we played like a 130 shot, 185 at one time. So yeah.
I mean, so when you're walking right into that, it's like walking into a wall. And so that part wasn't great, but it's easier to handle when you're with cool guys. And they were, again, not the best golfers, but they weren't hacking it all over the place, And so it was a lot of fun. But what was really unbelievable was we're on the 12th hole, short par 3, and the guy who was hosting gets up, and short hole, but who cares, And he hits it, and we're like, it was good. And the first guy had actually hit it onto the green a few feet away. So we're like, all right. And it was one of those days where you're not really sure what number to give them, because not only was the wind
it's like kind of
heavy,
blown across.
It was kind of coming from the crosswind, but it was also hurting. And then at times it felt like it was helping, and yada, yada, yada. It was a tough wind. And it's also an awkward shot, under 100 yards or so. And the first guy hit a good one. And the second guy, who was the worst golfer of the 4, gets up, and me and the other caddy, the caddy I was with, and so you can picture this, we're actually arguing slightly because I had dropped my towel, and so I took his off of his bag that he was carrying, and he was all flummoxed, like, "Where's my towel? Is that my towel? Where's my towel? Where's my towel?" I'm like, "I don't know. This is my towel, And and literally we stopped and we turned and we watched the ball roll in, and all of a sudden it's like, goes from, "Where's my towel? Where's my towel?" It was awesome. And we actually had to have, like, just a few, not very far from us, guys on the hole next to us, caddies there, they turn and they see us, and we're screaming, "Hole in one,"
Yeah.
And so we got a quick selfie with the guy, and we're super excited. And then the next guy gets up, the older guy I was on the bag for, and he literally goes around the cup, rims the cup,
Cups
out.
Oh, wow.
And it ends up like less than 6. I mean, he tapped in the ball.
Yeah.
And we were that close to back-to-back hole-in-ones. And I can tell you, one of these guys was a baller, if you know what I mean, and he was a very kind and generous baller, too. So I can only imagine even getting back. It was... and then the rest of the loop, you're torn between absolute excitement for the guy who got the hole-in-one.
Yeah.
Also just really enjoying the people that we were out with. They were just really enjoyable. And then sitting there kicking yourself going, do you know what a great tweet that would have been if we would have been able to say there's guys who got back-to-back hole-in-ones? Do you know how many views that would have gotten?
No kidding. Yeah, that would have been viral.
Paid from Elon this month or whatever. So, yeah, it was awesome. And those guys were just, again, so appreciative. The guy who was the older guy who ran his own company has done many very successful things. He's worked on some projects that are huge. Like, I wouldn't even actually know how you physically get the construction materials in to do what he has done. Okay?
Wow.
Huge. And he's literally 3 times, just in a very humble way, said, you guys are great. Thank you so much for making this a big day.
That's
and
awesome.
you know that sometimes the guys who are the bigwig CEO owners like that, they do so many things in their life that they're aloof to, like, maybe even thanking people or being impressed or just enjoying something, you know?
Yeah.
And this guy, you know, his phone rang. He left it in his bag. He was totally in the moment. And his son was there. And again, that's another sometimes minefield, is that you've got these young guys who grew up pretty entitled and they can be pretty dismissive and rude sometimes. Oh my gosh, this guy was so cool and great. He loved it. He loved it. And maybe you can tell the listeners, Nick, what me and the other caddy did when we were on the 16th hole and you were on the 11th.
Well, I was walking down 11, and I'm probably looking for my player's ball or something like that, and I hear, you know, hey Bartsy. I'm like, what's that? And I see Mark and the other caddy just like going bonkers, giving me all kinds of wrestling signs from the mid-90s, and probably not appropriate for the golf course, but that's another debate for another day.
No, it wasn't. But that guy, he was cracking up, and he just loved the camaraderie.
Yeah.
He loved seeing us act like kids. He loved seeing the joy. And it was just because we were waiting for the green to clear for him to take his next shot. That's why we had time. And we thought it was you because we could kind of tell from the slender Adonis build you have.
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
He just cracking up. He's like, I love this. You go, this is great, you know? And so we had a fun day. And again, very thankful to be with them. Then last week, I also had the privilege, Nick, of caddying for a couple of guys who won some free golf from me. And that was awesome. So for those of you who don't know out there, I wrote a book called Caddie Tales. And when you write a book, you got to promote it to sell it. You want to sell it. Sometimes it feels weird. Sometimes I don't know what the right line is as far as how much to promote it versus when you get annoying and all that. And I'm sure I've crossed it. So I apologize if that's true. But I ran some promotions in the winter, and it was good. It worked.
Yeah.
And I have now 3 sets of twosomes that I had to pay for their golf. And so that was a little bit of a kind of a kick in the gut when I went into the pro shop last week and paid for that. Thank goodness rates hadn't gone up yet to their peak. But anyway, I went in and did that, and I just had to keep reminding myself that I had, made money on the book sales, But these guys came from Minnesota and Michigan, And just the gratitude they had to be there. And they're old college buddies, and they only get together once a year from what I could tell. And so when the guy won, it was natural for him, like, this is the big once-a-year event we're going to get together for. And he invites this guy along. And it was just the three of us out on the loop, I think.
Oh,
Maybe
really?
It wasn't. Anyway. Oh, no, it wasn't. But they had push carts and whatever.
Okay.
So we were kind of in our own little world, you know. And we were having just a wonderful conversation. It was great to be with them. And again, the golf was kind of secondary because, you know what I loved? I loved when they looked around and appreciated where they were at, you know.
Yeah.
And they recognized the beauty. Do you ever loop for somebody, Nick, and just wonder, like, are they even looking at this big lake or at this beautiful property? Or are they so dialed into their match?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been a handful of people where you're like, I don't know, maybe they're not appreciating it appropriately, but I get it. Some people are fortunate enough to play a lot of top courses too, so they've probably seen a lot of cool stuff. So
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's right. You know, there are people who've been everywhere, and so then when you get the people for whom you know this was like they saved up all year and they don't get to do this kind of stuff, it feels really special. And I was thankful to be a part of that. So I actually have another group coming Labor Day weekend, and then another one in October. And hey, if you're listening to this, check out my Twitter account because I'm running another promotion right now. And it's open to 100 entries, and the contest is just open till we hit it. And when we get to 100 entries, I'll pick a winner, and that's a free round for 2. And you can get all the details there on my Twitter page. Right now, I think we're at like 15 entries, so slow but steady.
Can I enter?
Actually, yeah, because I think... that would be great if you won, and then we use our free playing privileges. No, you may not enter.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So that was awesome. And then a couple more that I just want to highlight. The other day I caddied for a guy that I first caddied for in 2020. So we have kept at least in a little bit of contact since then. You know, Twitter, DMing every now and then. And go ahead.
Did you ask him if you were a better caddy now than you were in 2020?
I don't think I needed to ask him. I think we all know the answer.
No, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. No, he did have a good. He was playing much better than I remember him playing. He wasn't a bad player, but I remember kind of like, okay, this is a big golf course and you're going to have some holes. But what was amazing about that day, and I still remember it, is our 18th hole is just a difficult hole. And it's actually sometimes frustrating for us because you want people to finish on a better note. And sometimes they just don't. So this was a guy who had been struggling, and then he almost drops like a 50-footer for birdie, and then we've got like a tap-in par. And all of a sudden, you know, the old phrase, that's the one that'll keep you coming back. I remember the giddiness, the elation that he had. And that's what it's all about. So he came back this last week, and it worked out perfectly because it was a day where there was big storms in the forecast. And so right before the loop started, the other 3 players who were within driving distance and weren't there on a package or staying at the resort decided not to play because they had a feeling we were going to get pulled off the golf course. And their attitude was, if we're going to pay this kind of money and we're going to play at this kind of place, we want it to be perfect, I guess, you know? So
Gotcha.
It ends up being that this guy who came back just to see me and me to caddy with him, it was just me and him out there. And so we had a lot of time to chit-chat and catch up and have a fun time. He played really well. And then on the 15th hole, the siren did blow for the death storm that was coming in. So we had to race in. We got in just before the rain. Now, Nick, why don't you tell the listeners how you had the exact opposite kind of day than me on that day. I got to finish. My player decided not to play anymore because it looked bad the rest of the day. What hole were you on when the storm hit?
Yeah, we just got done with hole 1, and they blew the siren. And, so I had to sit around and wait for another hour before we could tee off on number 2. It was a pretty tough day as far as weather conditions go. But the guys I had were super positive about it, which was, really nice. They were very generous at the end of the round, which is always nice too on a hard rain day.
Yeah, because that's not always the case.
No, not at all. I mean, if you have a miserable day, you might take it out on your caddy, I guess. But yeah, it worked out well. It was two kids and 2 dads, and yeah, they were really cool guys. I felt kind of bad because I kept trying to gauge how much fun they were having. Kind of hoping that maybe they were not having so much fun, so maybe they'd quit. But that wasn't the case at all. So yeah, they had fun. Yeah.
Well, and it was a soaker. I mean, this wasn't just like drizzle
the
or
whole time.
It was a steady pouring rain for hours.
Yeah. It rained.
I mean, I remember.
I don't think it ever stopped.
Yeah, I remember in our caddy group chat, guys just kind of texting each other, making fun of you because you had to be out there.
Thanks.
That was fun.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
But even running in, I went to the gym and I ran in just from the car to the gym, and I'm like, that was miserable, and I'm all wet and stuff, and I'm thinking of you, and
thanks.
Holy cow, just terrible.
Yeah.
But you're a trooper. You got broad shoulders. Those bags, as they got weighted down another 30 pounds, were probably fine for you.
So heavy. No, they were so heavy. Oh, I told my guy on 18, I was like, I think the thing I'm looking forward to most is just getting these bags off my shoulders. They're like 1,000,000 pounds right now. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's not your fault. They just get waterlogged.
You get an inch of rain in a few hours. There's nothing that can be done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a tough day. So I am thankful that I got to not be a part of it. So sometimes it's the loops you're not on that are the good loops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then the last one that I got the privilege to be a part of was a father and son. And they were actually playing the other course on our property. And I took that loop because it was just a 4 caddy job for 2 people. And so usually not, obviously less money. And so some guys, were trying to avoid that. And I had the privilege of being out with some really good, kind people over the previous days. So I thought, well, I'll take one for the team and I'll go out with them. And, it saves your body. You got to have a few loops like that every now and then.
Yeah. I took one of those on Sunday.
Yeah. And it did save me a few hours too, because I got to go right out to the tee box and then the course was flying. So it was great. Mm-hmm. Good people again, just a run of good people. And the reason why I wanted to mention them, though, is I have never seen anyone hit a golf ball further. And we've seen a lot of people hit golf balls. And we've seen some really good golfers. But this dude was hitting his 3-wood with like a casual swing 300 yards.
Wow.
And it was like all of a sudden, when we're caddying, we kind of have these like things that just become almost like muscle memory when we're telling players where to aim the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know, generally speaking, how far it is from like where most guys will drive the ball to then how far it is to this next thing. And we don't even have to think about it most days.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that day I had to start thinking about it because I'm like, this guy might hit it too far on a shot that I've never seen anyone hit it too far on.
Yeah. What tees was he playing from?
He played from the blue tees.
Blues? Okay.
Yeah, and so there was one hole. The 8th hole is a par 5. And all the par 5s on that course, for those who aren't familiar, have a creek that you have to cross. And sometimes, you got to have players lay up before the creek because their drive wasn't far enough, and then to carry the creek is too far.
Yeah.
And so that's generally the world that we're living in. Would you agree? Like, how are we going to navigate the creek?
Yeah. Yeah, hit an 80-yard shot and lay up short of the creek because I don't think you can carry it 150.
First of all, we're in the blue tees, and you would never normally think about giving a guy driver. I mean, that's just what we do. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, how far is it down to that creek? Is it 350 or is it 300? Because if it's only 300, I gotta, and those are things you're not used to worrying about. So he didn't hit his best drive of the day, actually hooked it a little bit, and it ended up left in a bunker, what we often call waste bunkers. And he comes up and he goes, what do I got? And so I answered the question the way that I have answered that question hundreds of times before.
Yeah.
By telling him how far it is to get over the creek. So I'm like, well, you got 150 yards to get over those stairs in the middle of the creek.
Yeah.
And then if you're left of it a little shorter, if you're right of it a little longer. And he goes, no. How far to the pin?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what? I mean, it didn't even occur to me because we're in a bunker. So he just grabs his 3-wood, and I heard him say these words before he hit it. He's like, get lined up. He goes, okay, choke up. So he chokes up on his 3-wood, and you know how far away the pin was?
How far?
265 yards. Out of a bunker.
Chokes up 3-wood. Wow.
And he puts it pin high.
Crazy.
And then he puts it in for eagle. And I'm like,
wow.
I don't even know what to do here. I would have never, ever thought somebody was going to hit a choked up 3-wood 265 yards out of a bunker. I don't care that it was a calm day. I mean, or I don't even remember if it was. Whether it was or wasn't, that was just crazy. And so then the rest of the round, you're just kind of watching and marveling and looking. And he was, a super cool guy too. And then he mentioned at one point, he's like, maybe when I'm older, get on the Champions Tour. That's the goal. And I'm thinking, because he wasn't like a refined golfer. Okay, there were some shots and some drives that went way far away too. But he was good, but he wasn't great. But anyway, I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, this guy's over 40 years old and he's piping drives 340 yards.
Jeez, wow.
It's not that long until he's eligible for the Champions Tour.
Yeah.
Learn how to putt a little bit, and maybe it's not a pipe dream.
Yeah, no doubt. Wow. I was picturing like a guy like 25 years old when you were talking about it. But man, holy cow.
No.
Jeez.
A grown man, it was so unexpected, just so unexpected. So you have this contrast between him and then his dad hitting driver like 150 yards. But I loved it because it was the father-son type of relationship that you love, where the son was looking out for the dad. The dad, if he happened to get on the green maybe quicker or whatever, just smack talking his son, reminding him who's boss or whatever. So nice. I just loved it. It was awesome. Yeah. It was a great time, great day. So, that's a week in the life, and I'm sure that you have similar stories as well. The question that I get almost every day from people is, does it ever get old? And then you have weeks like this, and you're like, no, it doesn't. I think on a general basis, you would agree that being on the property never gets old, right, Nick?
No. Yeah, no, it never gets old. And like, if I start to like feel down about it or something, I just think back to like the winter when we're doing nothing and we're just so bored, and it's kind of like my pinch me moment or whatever. You know?
And I've caught myself saying a couple of times this year, wow, this loop is so good. I've got to remember it on one that wasn't. And there was one in there this last week. We're not living in a fairy tale, people. There are some hard days. There are some days that are just hard no matter how cool the people are, because like you said, though, it's either you're waterlogged or we're still blowing 40 and 50 mile an hour winds, or they packed. Actually did have a loop this week where the other caddy emptied out 36 golf balls for his player. Before the round. 36. We counted them.
Wow.
Left them 10. They lost 2 or 3. I can't remember. So, folks,
right.
you don't need to bring that many. But, there's days where that's just a grind. I did have one group this week where it was just not a connection. Very dismissive. Very rude. I'm sure then that rubbed off on me, and I didn't give my best or do my best. It was just one of those days where, it wasn't a fit. And so that happens too, and you do your best to like get through it and to make sure you're still helping them and being professional and stuff, but you're not unhappy when it's over. And that's a beautiful part of the job, is that after 4 or 5 hours it's over and you part ways and you go on. So
exactly.
what a cool thing though that we get to be a part of this.
I agree.
You know, like that guy yesterday who got the hole in one. That's something he will never ever forget.
Yeah, never.
And you get to be inserted in that story. And so when he looks at the picture from afterwards, and he shows that picture to people, we are, you know, just kind of etched into that memory, and it's fun. It's an honor, you know. One thing about that guy, by the way, though, he was so down to earth and humble. He went to go get up on the 13th tee box after he had the hole in one, and he was going to use the ball that went in for the hole in one. And we're like, no, wait, man, this is golf. Your next drive is going into the lake.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh,
man. And by the way, his drive on 13 went like 40 yards into the lake, and his drive on 14 went over the hill to the right. So his heart rate was having a little bit of a tough time coming down.
I've experienced that. That's a real thing. Yeah. I got a hole in one.
The awesome thing was he like is predicting it. He knew what was going to happen. And so every bad shot that he hit the rest of the round, guys are like, "Hey, remember that hole in one?" You know. So that was a real thing. Nick, you know, as we conclude on this, and getting to talk about the privilege that we have, we were caddies. We were service-oriented professionals for people. We want to do a good job for them. What's something as we close with the good caddy, bad caddy segment that you can look at and say, yeah, I did good with that?
Yeah, I'd have to pat myself on the back for my attitude during the rain day. You know, I put a smile on my face and march my way through it. But I'd also, on the opposite end, I'd probably give myself a bad caddy for secretly in the back of my head hoping my players were having a bad time, so maybe they'd quit. But no, we had fun. We had a good time.
But overall, good job for keeping that to yourself. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Very important.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to say good caddy for giving the right yardage along with my partner for this hole in one, because it was difficult. You would agree, right? I'm not just blowing smoke.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. At the same time, my guy who hadn't really played much golf parted, but yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. But no, it's actually one of the things that I get a kick out of is when people really like have no idea what club to use and how the wind's affecting. You know, a lot of players do, but there's some who never play in that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe they're not as good at golfers. And when you give them the right one and they hit it right, it's still a thrill. It's still something you get happy about, you know?
Yeah.
And then for bad caddy, I think it was the loop that I had last week where I was for caddy and just wasn't connecting with the guys. And there's like about a 3-hole stretch where I just kind of was grumpy. Yeah. And then I got to thinking that, you know, I can't let them and their attitudes impact mine. And then maybe if I can turn it around, they'll turn it around. And absolutely, that actually happened. And one of the players even made a comment when we were on the 15th fairway. And it apologized for some of their previous behavior. So that was kind of a nice coming of full circle, I guess. So yeah, thankful for that and recognizing that, hey, though, shouldn't even let those emotions show, though. You got to just be professional and grin and bear it, and because those people paid for a good experience, and it's our job to give it to them. So I'm going to try to do better this coming week, and we'll have more people that we get to meet and more people that we get to learn about and help, and it'll be a great day in a beautiful setting. But until then, we're going to remind you that the game of life, just like the game of golf on this side of the ground, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how many shanks or misses or just flat out despair that's out there, there's always another shot, and that shot is full of hope and opportunity. So take yours.